Yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Casey Jones with a Z. I don't think I've actually seen that before, so I thought that was
So
cool.
so that's my email address. My name's
Okay.
Kasey F. Jackson.
Casey F. Jackson. So where does the Jones come from? Is that your moniker? Is
So the
that
Jones is my ancestor that came over from Wales ran away, and he had a tumultuous childhood, and so he ran away, and he became a ship cabins boy, and he changed his name from Jones to Jackson. So I'm
interesting?
actually a Jones after we've done some DNA testing and some family historian private detective work. My Jackson actually is a Jones original.
Yeah, interesting. So I mean, we're diving right in. This is the values podcast.
Here we
On
go.
some so right in there. So it seems like you're a family guy. Your roots matter to you. That's interesting. Do you think about that a lot? Is that are you a prideful man in that way?
For sure. So going back 400 years, 12 generations, 4,094 people it took to create each one of us.
That's
So
crazy.
4,094 people, just 12 generations. And I think I got the net math right. I might be wrong. But all those people lived extremely, um, who knows what kind of lives they lived. The toil and hardships that they had to go through to pass on their DNA to the next generation. And so I'm just very proud of my ancestors and my heritage and the hardworking people that got me here and where I'm at today. So yeah, so my family is very important to me. I love it.
Yeah, super cool. I love how we're diving right into that story off the block. So, anyways, you have the Hunkerin Stool. That's what I know you for. That's what I've seen you
Yes,
on
sir.
social media for. Oh, you have one there? Awesome.
So here's my Hunkerin stool. Check it out.
That's really cool.
Yeah, baby. So that's the Hunkerin stool. That's how you found me.
Yeah,
And the fun thing about the Hunkerin stool is talking about my ancestors. Kermit H. Jackson was my grandpa, and he was a dairy farmer. And when I'd go over to his house when I was a little boy, we would still milk cows on a milking stool. And so now I sell modified milking stools. That's where the idea came from, was from a milking stool.
super cool. So it's you've got your email's got your name that dates back, and then you also tapped into that for your business for your product. That it seems, at least from my vantage point, has kind of blown up over the last few years. I've seen several separate accounts that I followed for a long time are showing your stool in it. So I thought that was really cool. How long ago did you come up with the idea of it, and then uh, yeah, what made you think, okay, I've got an idea. This might be something that people want to buy. How'd you make that transition into selling it?
Yeah, so I had a extreme background. I was a Division I college football player, and then I dropped out to pursue a career in MMA. And during all those times, I was a manual laborer and worked construction, and I eventually became a general contractor. And then after MMA, I started doing strongman contests, lifting giant stones and flipping 1,000-pound tires and all the rest of it. So I wore my back out, and so along my journey, I'd come to realize that resting in a deep squat was huge on helping me decompress my lower back. But I'm a big guy, and it's uncomfortable for me to rest down there like the Asians do in a deep squat. I'm a big old Viking, and so it was difficult for me to rest down in there. So I had to come up with a solution. And so out of trial and error, and it's been over 5 years, it took me to develop it and get it figured out. I had lots of prototypes and lots of uh, uh, different runs on it. And I finally came up with the three conical compression springs that allows you to rest comfortably in a deep squat and still be able to articulate and move like the human spine does. It moves and bends like a spring. So it's been a fun little invention, and we're selling stools, and it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, that's super cool. So it's been 5 years since your V1 till now. Is that the 5 years you were referencing?
So probably 5 years, and then we've been in business for now a little over a year.
Okay. And were
So we
you
started, yeah, we started selling stools in around Thanksgiving around 2023.
okay? Wow, that's fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fast to be kind of all over the place. What has been your marketing strategy, or what what about the stool do you think has taken off? Since I've seen it on some pretty popular like influencer accounts, or the trainers and stuff that are kind of into that the stability training. I've seen some of them use it. Um, are you intentional about getting it to those people, or are they just kind of finding it?
For sure. So there's people there that are that have more knowledge about than I do in the fitness industry and help. Like for instance, Mark Bell, and he invented a product called a slingshot, which is huge. And I bought one years ago, and so I actually that's how I got started. Is I drove out to Northern California to go to Thanksgiving at my wife's family, and we stopped. I drove back up. They were in Vacaville, and it was about an hour away from Sacramento. So I drove back up to Sacramento, and I walked into Mark Bell's gym at the time, and I dropped off a stool, and nobody was there. There was just one guy there who was kind of working at the office there, and I left a little note, and that was it. And I was like, well, that's okay. I lost a stool along the way, but him and his podcast co-host Ensima Yang called me up the next week and said, Kasey, this is amazing. We want to be an affiliate. And I'm like, no way, you like it? And by the way, what's an affiliate? So that's how it started. And then I've been reaching out, and then Mark set me up with some people. And then I find somebody who I like, and I like their approach to fitness. And so then I'll send them a stool and see if they like it, and they'll post about it, and so we're slowly building a little Hunkerin Stool clan out there, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful, it's brilliant.
Super cool. What types of trainers, or what types of training philosophies do you find uh, are attracted to the Hunkerin stool? Since I've seen it through some of my world, I don't know how much of and I would say that's more like stability focused, kind of nervous system training, that kind of stuff. I see some people from that world, and I think that might be because it's a spring. You kind of have that dynamic component. Um, but yeah, what types of trainers and people are interested in the stool?
So one of the things what's been good about my stool is that so I use it for everyday use to break up my sitting patterns. And so I use it as an actual, right now I'm standing at a stand-up desk. And so at my office here, so I don't sit. I don't even have an office chair. I have a saddle stool and a Hunkerin stool. And other than that, I'll stand or I'll just lay down or sit on the floor like we used to. And so I use it for rehabilitation all the way up to performance. And so depending on where you're at in your journey, like you can use it throughout both of those. And then recently I've had a problem with my Achilles tendon. I tweaked it last fall. And so I've been rehabbing my beat up Achilles tendon on my Hunkerin stool while I'm just resting on it. And so I'm reaching out to people though that are in the health and fitness industry, primarily to get it out there as a health and wellness tool to help people from rehabilitation all the way to performance. And then the reason why we go to performance is because everything starts from your glutes and your um, hips and your core. And so that being said, like if you can't fire off, if you don't have strong, powerful glutes in any athletic explosion, anything that requires explosiveness, your body's not fully functioning. So if you sit all day, it's just basic human anatomy science is that our glutes are deactivated. Our biggest, strongest muscles in the human body are deactivated. And so by resting actively in a Hunkerin stool and I can bounce, my glutes are engaged. And then my pelvic floor, my deep core muscles are engaged. And I open up my adductors and my groin. And so it's just like I didn't expect it to do as well as it has, to be honest with you, because it's been taken off in different avenues. And it's really it's really humbling that people like Mark Bell and another big guy who we have who's a big fan of ours is a guy named Bill Maeda, who's an
Yeah.
old samurai guy from Honolulu,
Yeah, that guy's
Hawaii.
a badass. He does
Yeah.
he's one of those guys I was mentioning, the stability guys. Like he has the most
Yes.
creative stability setups, and he'll just show himself doing reps in the most awkward positions with like a Bosu ball and your stool and like bands and everything's bouncing around and he's controlling it. But yeah, he's a beast. He's pretty inspiring.
So the full spectrum from performance to rehabilitation, and as I've gotten older, I can't do the same stuff I used to do, and now I try to train more functional instead of trying to lift heavy, super heavy weights. And my goals have changed. Now I want to be able to be active and have a good quality of life as I continue to get older. So those are the kind of the main platforms we're trying to pursue. And then to just the general person who sits at an office all day, who sits in a static 90-degree position. um the Mayo Clinic has coined the term sitting is the new smoking. And that's one of my I think the term might be moniker, or one of my marketing points, is that sitting is the new smoking, because comfort is slowly killing us. The human body was meant to be up and moving around and not sit statically. And even as I live a very active lifestyle, but when I sit for prolonged periods of times, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get up off my ass and go move around. And so I'll go and rest on my Hunkerin stool. So it's a great tool, and it's been really fun to get it out there.
It's like the anti-sitting seat. That's
Yes. So stop sitting and start hunkering.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah, I love that, and I love that spectrum that you mentioned, the rehab to performance spectrum. That's something I think about. I'm a trainer too. I think about that a lot, and I like even the performance side. I like to call it prehab. I've seen that term out there. I think there's a couple brands around that term, but that's really what it is. The rehab, it just extends, it gets a little more aggressive once you're not injured, once you're kind of moving past the rehab stage. But it's the same type of exercise. It's the same, um, building the stabilizers, having full control, full range of motion. So yeah, super cool. I really like that stool. There's uh, there there's this term anti-fragility. Have you heard of that? Nassim Taleb.
Anti-fragility?
Yeah,
No.
anti-fragile. It's basically an anti-fragile system is something that gets stronger from stress, like a human body, right? You
Hmm.
stress it out as long as it's within the scope of the stress it can handle. It breaks down in the short term, but long term it gets stronger in the rebound. So it's different than like robust. If like there's a building that withstands an earthquake, it's strong, it's not fragile, but it's not getting better. Whereas the human body, it gets better. So there was a study where they had trees, they put them in a greenhouse, and they controlled the minerals in the soil and the amount of
I'm familiar
water and
with
the
this. Keep going. I
temperature.
know where you're going to lead to. Keep going, buddy. Keep
Yeah,
going.
but all the trees died, and the factor that they didn't take into account was the wind. The trees needed some resistance. They needed to be some stress on the roots to get stronger, and that stimulated the root growth.
And
Um,
that's what I love what you just said with that, the roots. So because it was such an easy, as in comfortable environment, the roots were not able to dig down deep enough, and they watered it probably really well. So there was never a lack of moisture. So the roots weren't forced to dig down deep and take hold of Mother Mother Terra Firma, Mother Jaya. And so the trees toppled over. And I totally believe that with the human body. So I, on the other hand, when I was growing up and working out, I thought the harder I pushed my body, the more extreme I was, the better off I would get. And then it was great for a while, but eventually I just literally burned the wheels off of my truck. I blew the engine. And so the stress is what we need, though, to become a better person and get stronger and has a better performance and all the rest of it. I love it.
as an athlete, how do you navigate that threshold of stress? How do you? What are the signs when you're overtraining, when you're accumulating too much stress and it's breaking you down? Um, and then yeah, are you crossing that threshold? You mentioned MMA and strongman, some of the pretty extreme sports you've done.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like so some people have a hard time going to the gym, and they need motivation. I have to go to the gym and I have to work out for my mental health and to keep me from either killing myself or somebody else, which is getting better now as I'm getting older. But as far as so we only know where our limits are by pushing through those limits. And so if we never push ourselves past a breaking point, we never know where that breaking point is. And so I've literally sheared off both my upper pectorals, where now when I lift up my arm, I have great big indentions where I've sheared off my pecs. I've literally torn my muscles off of my skeletal structure by going balls to the wall. And so that's obviously going too hard, and we don't want to do that. And so we want to push ourselves to where it's uncomfortable, to where we get to test our limits, and every now and again max out or test our limits. And then one of the things I wish I would have known now, what I knew, I wish I would have known then what I know now, is like the term deload. Like there is a time where when we work out, we need to take the time to rehabilitate and let our bodies recover and repair. And I never really thought of that, or I even had strength and conditioning coaches in college would be like, Kasey, you got to chill out. I'm like, chill out, man. No way. I got to go harder. And so that being said, is that after you break your body down and you don't give it a chance to recover, you'll continue to wear it out. And so going back to the Hunkerin stool is now when I do work out and I do push myself, I can rest on that and actively move my body and actively recover and get to be able to move again to where I can pump out the lactic acid that's developed and then just go back to a normal training routine. So that's kind of in a nutshell, but it's a fine line between pushing too hard and then overdoing it and hurting yourself. And so, somewhere there's a magical formula, and I've never been able to quite tap into it. And now I'm getting too old. So
Yeah, it's something I struggle with too. I'm kind of like you're describing. I'll go, and until I kind of hit a wall, and I'm like, oh man, I've been doing too much. Uh, yeah, gotta go mend the pieces now. Um, Interesting. So when you made the stool, first of all, what were you doing before you made the stool? Were you in the fitness product world? Were you a trainer, or an athlete? What were you doing at the time when you made the stool?
so uh my last I've had a very eclectic life. um I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I started a little retaining wall business when I was in high school, where I used to build retaining walls, and each brick weighed 88 pounds, and I would stack those up all day long, and then I'd go to the gym after, and just always go 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 go. And it was great because I made a lot more money working for myself than I did working for my former boss. And so since then, I kind of learned the value of being self-employed, which is good and bad. It's great when you're doing great, and it's super bad when you fell in an enterprise. So I was a general contractor, and then in 2008 we had a housing crisis, and I lost my job, and I went broke, completely flat and broke, hit rock bottom. Then I got involved in I was developing the unconventional energy hydrocarbons out in Vernal, Utah. Out in eastern Utah, we have an estimated between 19 to 32 billion barrels of oil in what are called oil sands. And so I teamed up with a great big investor and a Penn State material science program who had discovered an ionic liquid, and because of the different charges of the ions, they would separate the molecular bond, which would hold the bitumen, the heavy oil, to the sand, and it was completely recyclable and environmentally safe, and it was phenomenal. And at the time, a barrel of oil was around $120, and our investor, and we had 5,000 oil sand leases ready to go, and then they cut the price of oil to like $20. So I got completely slammed again and went completely broke. And then during that process, I lost vision in both my eyes. I had to get two corneal transplants, and I was blind, not literally blind like the lights were shut off, but I couldn't see, and I was flat broke. And so over my life, I've had to live and die by my sword and live and be carried out on my shield. And so I just keep picking myself up one day after another. And through all this trials and tribulations and all the taxing I've done to my body, I and my background in building and construction, and my dad is a professional engineer, a mechanical engineer. I kind of came up with this idea of a Hunkerin stool, and so because of all the hardships that I endured, it was able to force me into developing this new product. And so I guess basically out of a bag of lemons, I've made a little glass of lemonade. And so we're just trying to take what we've learned and keep moving forward. So I've had a very eclectic life, and I still have a lot of things on my to-do list before I leave this realm. So I got to get after it, and I got to hunker down.
Let the hunger down. Um, you mentioned how you're focused on functional training these days, and the Hunkerin Stool, I would say, is a functional seat. It's definitely in that somewhere in that functional umbrella. When did you kind of shift your focus into the functional realm, both in your training, and did that coincide with the idea for the Hunkerin Stool, or had you been in the functional world for a while before you came up with the idea?
Yeah. So when I was playing college football, as a true freshman, I was the strongest player on the University of Hawaii's football team. I was just super naturally strong. Going back to my ancestors were farmers and Vikings, and so I came by it honestly. And then I've started working out every day when I was 8. I started working out, doing my push-ups and sit-ups, and I'd run a mile. And I'd go and shoot 100 baskets during basketball season. I had to make 100 baskets outside in the wind and the rain and the snow. My little boy fingertips would crack and bleed from shooting hoops. And so my whole life, I've just been working on trying to get better. And so when I was playing college football, though, I got so big and strong, I got muscle bound. I was stiff. And so I was like, well, I need something to help loosen up, to be more functional and mobile. And at that time, MMA had started, and there was a guy named Hoist Gracie. This is back in 1997. And so then I started taking jiu-jitsu to work on my functionality and my mobility, and obviously be as big and as powerful, as strong as I could possibly be. And then when I went to transition to MMA, I basically quit lifting weights because I was over 300 pounds, and the heavyweight cutoff was 265 pounds. So I had to lose. I still would walk around 285, and I'd have to cut down and make weight to 265. So I just been a big guy, and so I switched over to the mobility training. But then I was still doing strongman training on Saturdays, flipping 1,000-pound tires and carrying and loading the Atlas stones, which go from anywhere from between 200 to almost 400 pounds. At the time, we were training with Atlas stones. And so even in MMA, I was still doing strongman type training because I just want it all. I want to be as strong as I possibly can, powerful and mobile, and be able to hike. And I hike up in the mountains with my dogs. And now I've got little kids, so I got to stay active for them. So it's just been a accumulation throughout my whole life of trying to be the best I can through all gamuts of physical. But then not only that, I also believe that we're we we are a three-tiered component, that we're a physical being, we have a physical body, we have a mind, we have a mental mind, and I believe we have a soul. So we're physical, mental, and spiritually. And if one of these three components are out of line or out of sync, then we as a human being aren't functioning at our fullest capacity. And so now I've been able to like dial in, and the amount of, I previously mentioned, like I've pushed my body till I tear stuff off of my frame, and I don't train like, but I can train my mind like that. I can surpass my limitations, and then I can work on my spiritual side as well. And I'm actually on a spiritual journey. I call it a Mayan rising. Mayan is like it's an old Anglo-Saxon word. It's a beautiful word that I found somehow. And your man is your mana or your chi or your sexual energy down here in your solar plexus. And you take that fire from your belly, and then you channel it up, and you channel it to shoot towards your targets. So it's a way of taking your energy, your sexual energy, sexual transmutation, and transmuting it towards your goals. And so it's a fun thing to be a part of. And it all and it all starts from trying to become your best, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I kind of went off on a tangent there, Jake.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, the tangent from my question, but it's definitely, you're getting at the theme of this. I think I'm starting to kind of see some of the things you value. How do you spell that word you're saying, Mayan?
Mayan. So it's M A and E. The A and E are together. It's an
Okay,
old English letter. The A and the E are together. GEN.
Mayan.
And it's an old English Anglo-Saxon word and I kind of like I found that I have it actually tattooed on my arm. I have it tattooed on my arm. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then where do you find information on this? Are there books on this? Are there people out there that study this and share? Like where are you learning about how to um yeah, how this Mayan energy, how to transmit it, how to harness it?
So have you ever heard of a Kundalini awakening? The Kundalini.
It's familiar, but I don't know.
So in the Eastern traditions, so through martial arts, I've studied Buddhism and Hinduism, and I seek after all truth enlightenment, whatever source it may be. And I have a strong belief in a higher power. I call him my eternal father. And in Old Norse, they called him Odin or the All Father, a god, the god of gods. Anyways, so a Kundalini awakening is where you're able to take all of your energy, and they have in the Eastern traditions, they believe that we have seven chakras. Are you familiar with the term chakras?
Yeah, yeah.
So chakras. So we start with the bottom chakra, which is called your root chakra. And so going all the way back to where you're talking about your trees in
Yeah.
the nice biodome that weren't able to grow down their root chakra or their roots, they're easily to topple over. And the first pose in yoga, which will start to awaken and align your root chakra, is the malasana pose, or AKA the deep squat. So once you start resting down here in a deep squat, the malasana pose, that's the first pose where you can start to open up and align your root chakra. And then this is all talked about in the Kundalini awakening. And the Kundalini awakening is a feminine type energy that goes up and down your spine. And I also believe that we have a feminine energy and a divine masculine energy, which isn't talked about very much in today's world. And so I'm taking my masculine energy and transmuting it and aligning all my seven chakras to connect directly to the source. And that's it in a nutshell. My Mayan rising. And so I'm kind of taking little bits and pieces from Buddhism and Hinduism and yoga and all this stuff, and I kind of weaved my own web of what's working for me, and trying to open up my chakras and connect to the source. And so the first three lower chakras are connected to your ego, or another term is like the natural man. And so that's your root chakra, and then you have a sacral chakra. That's where all of our sexual energy is. And then we have a solar plexus chakra. That's where your chi is. And then once we can transmute all that energy up into our heart chakra, that's the first chakra that we can start connecting to the higher chakras and to the source. And so then we have a heart chakra, then we have a throat chakra, and then we have a third eye, a pineal gland. They call it the third eye. And then there's a crown chakra where we can actually start to connect to the divine. And so it's just crazy, man. It sounds super. I can't believe I'm saying this right now because it sounds pretty crazy, but it's working.
Yeah, no, I like it, and I too kind of blend different ideologies into a web that kind of makes sense to me, and I think it's kind of a lifelong pursuit, just adding on little bits and pieces and changing little bits and pieces as you go. Um, you mentioned that you align the chakras and you're able to tap in and kind of align your energy towards your goals. I'm curious, like at this juncture, what are your goals? What are you um trying to direct everything towards.
So that's awesome. So going back to that, like a lot of people I see in all aspects of life is a lot of people aren't happy with their current situation. But then yeah, but I ask the question, I'm like, well, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know what I want. And so if you don't have a target or something to shoot at, there's no journey, there's no quest. And so luckily in my life, I've had these outrageous targets that I've shot at. And sometimes I hit, sometimes I get close. I don't think I've quite hit the bullseye yet, but I keep on shooting my arrows. So right now, my biggest target is I want to be the best I can physically, mentally, and spiritually, and be the best husband and father I can be. And then I want to make enough money to provide for my family. And then my end goal right now is I want to have a homestead. I want to have a little homestead where I have a 3-year-old son and a 2-year-old son and an 8 9 month old baby girl. And so I want to we live in a beautiful area up here in northern Utah, and we have a little uh, urban homestead on a quarter of an acre. We have a little orchard. We have a little garden going. We're practicing for the homestead, and we're getting chickens this spring. We've ordered the chickens. I got to build the chicken coop before they get here this summer. And so then the goal is to sell this house, hopefully sell some more Hunkerin Stools along the way, and then get down to central Utah where we can get more bang for our buck and do a little homestead and teach my boys how to work hard and not only become men but become warriors, being their best physically, mentally, and spiritually, and give them that reinstill that hard work and just that never stopping and continuing to pursue your goals no matter what kind of obstacles come our way. That's what I want to do. That's my target.
Yeah, I love it. That's homestead would be full circle back to milking stools, you know.
So I want my boys to end up milking cows on my Hunkerin stool, full 180-degree circle.
That's awesome. I love it.
Uh,
Are you into the farming? Do you know a lot about plants and is
no, no,
no?
I don't really. And like I've been like an athlete, and my wife calls me a meathead or a jock. I'm not even very good at business. I'm not really an inventor. I just keep on swinging my hammer and keep breaking through. But so when I first started building houses, I couldn't even read plans, but I figured it out. And when I first started MMA, I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of jumped in a cage and went after it. And so I usually tend to bite off more than I can chew, but I got this big jaw and I just chew hard. So that's what we'll
Love
do down in the. But now I have my wife, and she's really smart, and so she helps out a lot.
That's awesome.
And she's beautiful. And she's beautiful. She's way out of my league.
That's the dream right there.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, it's super cool. I have a similar goal. So I relate. I want to have tiny house communities for artists, entrepreneurs, and athletes to come and have the facilities and the resources to hone their craft and
Oh,
help
so,
them in all the ways I
sorry.
can.
What kind of artists?
Artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs.
Artists,
I've jumped
entrepreneurs.
between those things and combinations of those things in my own aspirations. And I don't know, it's kind of off the beaten path areas.
Well,
So
Jake, let me know because if you need help, I'll come build you. I'll come build those mini houses.
yeah, that'd be awesome. I
Let me.
Tiny
I'll come
houses
on
is
down. We'll
something I'm
bring a
trying to learn.
crew and we'll sling those houses up. We could probably order some.
Yeah, yeah, that's that'd be really cool.
I was actually involved in a little bit of they were called little villas. They were little. They're like leaking logs that you stack up
Oh
from Finland, and we were trying to get these little villas to take off a few years ago, and it didn't work out. And so that's when I decided to start pursuing the Hunkerin Stool. So I've actually been involved a little bit in the little houses.
yeah, it's
I love the concept. I want to have a little sauna of a little house
yeah, that'd
and
be
a little
awesome.
cold plunge.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. I lived in a school bus for a while. I converted it. I had a carpentry phase for a few years, and decided at one point to convert a bus. So yeah, that's kind of what got me onto the tiny house side, and then the long term visions.
Dude,
Yeah, I'm
I
at
wish
different
you I
parts as I
wish you
go.
all the best and take
Yeah,
all that energy on your journey, brother. I see you there in this big like little community, and everybody's got their own, and I think you have a garden there. For sure I see a garden,
yeah, for sure.
a little bit, a big central fire pit where everybody can come and hang out at night. I love
Yeah,
it.
do
I
human
see it. I
things.
see it. You got to see it before you get to it.
Exactly, and
You
then
got to feel
align
it.
the energy towards it. You know,
Yep. And you got to feel it. You got to see it and you got to feel it. And then as we speak it, we can create it.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
you connect your third eye. You can see it. You feel it from your heart chakra, and then from our throat chakra, we speak it. And the old term abracadabra, I create as I speak. Abracadabra. So there you go, baby.
interesting. I've
Abracadabra.
never heard
Let's do
that.
it.
That's what that means.
Yeah, abracadabra.
I've
It
never
goes
heard that.
back to like the old ancient Kabbalah traditions in Judaism. And the term abracadabra, which we think is like a silly magic trick, actually means abra to create, cadabra as I speak.
Interesting. I love that, and yeah, I really do believe life is what you make out of it. You know, you just have to
Self fulfilling prophecy. If you
exactly.
think you're going to have a bad day and you say, I have a shitty day and everything sucks, guess what? You're going to get double loads.
Yeah. Um. Interesting. So I also wanted to ask you some more pragmatic advice. I mentioned in my message to you when I reached out initially, I've my own exercise device that I want to bring to market. Um, and so I'm just curious. You said that you're not a good entrepreneur, but from my vantage point, you're you're figuring it out at the very least. It looks like you have it figured out. So I have a plywood device. It's similar size as the Hunkerin Stool. I'm just curious from the very beginning, like, did you get a patent before you sold your first device? What was that process like? Did you hire a lawyer? Were you able to kind of do some of this on your own, just like you said, beating your hammer, uh,
Yeah. So
biting off more than you can chew?
yeah, so we have it patent pending right now. We've tried it. We've applied for a utility patent and just a whatever else kind of patent. I can't even remember now. So we found a lawyer who did it. He wasn't very expensive, which I think may be problematic because I don't know how far along we are in getting the patent and how well of a lawyer he is to actually get it done. And right now, my finances are tied up to where the point where I'm not going to cut that guy off and go try to find another lawyer and start all over again. So we're just going to keep riding this out. But yeah, so we applied for a patent and it's still ongoing. I don't know when it will ever get the final word on it. But yeah, so I definitely and so depending on your budget, you either go and do it yourself or try to find a lawyer that can do it. And the thing too is like as an entrepreneur, so for the first year of my business, before I could mass produce my stool, I had to go down to a cabinet factory and I'd have to CNC every piece of my stool out from a big sheet of plywood, and then I'd have to router the edges, countersink it for the screws, and then sand all the rough parts off. And so I would work all day long at a cabinet shop, breathing in sawdust. My contacts, my eyes were completely shot because of all the sawdust because of my transplanted corneas. And I did just the most mundane assembly line work, but I couldn't afford to pay anybody else to do it. So I just went and did it. And then I hustle and I hustle and I hustle. So if you want something bad enough, you have to be willing to go through all the resistance and and all the bob wire and all the bullshit bureaucracy and cut through all the red tape to get it done. And if you want it bad enough, you'll be able to go through all these different levels of resistance. And then by going through these different levels of resistance, you eventually crack in and you get your goal. So then by spending a year doing that, I got to the point where I couldn't build the stools fast enough to keep up with my demand. And so I went through three different Chinese factories and sources, and we finally found this factory that's now making my stool, mass producing it, and it's cut my price down drastically. And so I wasn't going to be able to stay in business anymore unless I was able to figure out how to get it mass produced, because it was costing me so much money to work for this, and I wasn't paying myself, but I was able to sacrifice for a full year of my heart, my blood, sweat, and tears and toil to be able to get to where I could get the factory. And so so we went to Mark Bell December of 23, or sorry, Thanksgiving of 23. And so it was right before Thanksgiving again, end of November of Thanksgiving of 24, we got our first cargo container in from China, right in time for the holidays. And man, and now I don't touch the stools. Now the cargo container comes directly to my fulfillment center down the road from where I live, and they ship them to my customers. We have limited complaints. Everybody loves it. And off we go, baby. Off we go. And we just put in our second order as well. So we'll have another second order coming in here in hopefully by end of April, 1st of May.
That's awesome.
So whatever you have that you don't want to do, that's what you have to do first.
Can you expand on that a little bit? I like that idea.
So I'm self-employed, and I do so. Most people that go to work from an 8-hour shift only actually work for about 90 minutes. Everybody's different, construction workers, that's blue collar guys, they actually work the whole time, but maybe in an office they don't work a full 8-hour day. So I wake up and I try to get my morning routine done, and I'm trying to set up a more systematic morning routine where I can actually wake up and get going and be productive. And then I try to do my first 90 hard. I take 90 minutes where I just knuckle down and I do all of my clerical work. This is what I would do before I go to the factory and work on my stools. I do all of my like housekeeping or my computer work, sending out emails, all the rest of it. But the first thing I do, the hardest thing, which is on my list, I do that first. And then I go after that first. And then whether it's making a call or sending out an email or trying to get something done. And so then once I do the hardest thing of the day, the first thing I do, then it's like, oh, geez, here we go, baby. Now it's all downhill. And it goes back to being just easy going. And then it's like, then it's not that you're on cruise control, but now you don't have that nagging thing in the back of your head that's taking up so much real estate. I got to do this. No, bro, I just hammered it out. And so there you go. So do the hardest thing first. And then if you have it, you have to have a punch list, a to-do list of all the things you need to do. So if your goal is to get your product to market, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now you've got to reverse engineer every single step it will take you to get your product to market. And then that's your punch list. And so then the top thing on your list, whatever it is, you go and punch that. And then you get that done, then you go punch the next one. But you have to have a list and you have to punch it. And that's what I talk about, swinging my hammer. You just keep knocking those boards down on your punch list and get to where you need to go. That's what I do. And sometimes it works better than others. And then I get overwhelmed and get anxiety and I get burned out. But you just go back to that punch list and you keep punching it out.
And then how organized are you with that? Like, do you wake up every day, make a punch list, or do you have weekly goals? Do you track these things?
Yeah. So I like to term targets. Going back, if you don't have something to shoot at, you don't have a target. So I have yearly targets, I have monthly targets, weekly targets, and then I have daily targets. And so when I run out of a to-do list, then I can always go back to these other targets that I can spend my time and energy on. So once again, if you don't have something to shoot at, you have nothing to go. You just sitting around. You'll end up sitting down on your phone and scrolling and looking at Instagram reels, or you'll go play a computer game, or you'll go to the bar and get drunk, or these are all things I do, by the way. I
Yeah.
used to do, or I try not
Mhm.
to do. So you got to be disciplined and go attack your punch list.
Awesome. I wanted to just ask a little bit about the MMA career. That was something I didn't know coming into this conversation. It kind of came up before we even started recording, but um, yeah, just kind of as an aside, what was your experience? You mentioned you did high school football. You're big into lifting, and you wanted to get more mobile, so you transitioned into MMA. But yeah, well, can you walk me through the MMA career and then the jiu-jitsu career, which went alongside with it?
Yeah, so I went to high school football, then I went and played college football. And then when I was playing college football, I kept on getting hurt, and I kept on getting had some difficult situations with some coaches. And by when I started taking jujitsu, I was like, oh, I want to go fight. Um, and you play football and you play basketball and you play golf and all these things, but you don't play fight. Like when you fight, you fight. And it's so funny. I love this too. I like to add this on. It takes one ball to play sports, but it takes two balls to fight. So I love saying that. And so I was wild and extreme, and so I dropped out of school to go go pursue a career in MMA. But I didn't really have the pedigree. I didn't have a background in martial arts. I'd started taking a little bit of jujitsu, and I learned a little bit of Muay Thai and a little bit of boxing, and I just went and jumped in it. I just went and jumped in it. Hindsight being 2020, it would have been better to spend a few years to actually learn the craft and the trade before getting involved in it. But I jumped in. I won. I was about 500. I won as many fights as I lost. In all my fights, I never got knocked out, and I never broke my nose. And uh, I fought the former interim heavyweight champion before he was a former interim heavyweight champion. His name is Shane Carwin. Uh, he was fighting back when Brock Lesnar was the champ, the former WWE wrestler. And so I actually fought Shane Carwin in Honolulu.
Um,
Here we go.
I
So I
was
fought Shane
I
Carwin in
was curious
Honolulu.
to. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask too with MMA. Have any fighters used your stools in between rounds of competitions? I always
Not yet, but
it's
my
always
goal is to
looked.
be. Yeah, my
Yeah, I
goal
just
is
if
to
it feels seems like it makes sense, you know.
my goal is to get eventually to be a sponsor or get involved in like a big fight promotion like the UFC or something like that. That would be like my like ultimate bucket list. Um, yeah, it might. I don't know. They'd have to get down kind of low. I don't know. It'd be fun to try to get that taking or basketball players before while they're sitting before they get on the bench, go hunker down before they go in, kind of get their legs going.
Yeah, I feel like it makes sense. I don't know. When I do jujitsu, I like to sit on the ground in between rounds. But if there's a chair, I don't know if I feel like it's then I'm a little sluggish to begin the next round. I don't know. It feels like it'd be good to take the load off, but also kind of stay active. You know.
Yeah,
I was wondering
that
if
would be
people had used it for that.
those would all be fun evolutions of the Hunkerin stool. Maybe make it a little bit taller and a little stiffer so they don't go down so low.
Yeah,
Maybe make a specialized corner stool
yeah,
for MMA. We'll try to get there, Jake. We'll try to get there.
yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. Um, but yeah, this was really cool, Casey. Yeah, well, we can call it here, but I learned a lot. And a lot of the stuff you're doing is the stuff that I hope to be doing. So this is a really cool conversation for me. You've figured out a lot of problems that I'm gearing up to solve. So I really appreciate your
Well,
time here.
I'm gonna leave you with this really quick.
Yeah.
So going back to uh, the Eastern traditions and samurais, there's a Japanese term called ikigai. Have you heard of ikigai?
I've definitely heard it. It's familiar, but I forget what it means.
Really quick as we wrap up here. So ikigai is four components. It's something that you're good at. something that you can make money at, something that you're passionate about, and something that can help others. And so I've actually been able to come across this product or this project with my Hunkerin Stool, and I actually get to live a pure form of ikigai where I'm passionate about building and I'm good at it. Well, I'm okay at it, right? I have skills in that. I have skills in that. And I can make some money at it along the way, and I'm actually helping people out. And so my challenge to anybody who's here listening, if you're doing something or you're looking for something you want to move on to in your life, try to find something that would fit an ikigai type of environment where you can tackle all those four things. And so when you go to work, you're actually doing something you enjoy, and you still get kicked in the ass and these things don't work and everything's always a pain in the ass, things don't go as way you want. But man, how fun is it to be able to pursue your own passion and your own product and all this. So as an individual, and I just like to thank my higher heavenly Father for the opportunity that I have to be able to work on my Hunkerin Stool and live this ikigai that I'm on. So there you go, Jake. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, I love that. That ties it all together.
Yeah, right on, man.
Yeah,
Right on. I don't sound
awesome.
as crazy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Casey. This was really cool.
Right on, brother. Appreciate you.